Good afternoon to all those attending in our local time zone, and good morning, good evening to everyone else tuning in from abroad. I am truly thrilled, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome you to this fine addition to our series of mentoring talks. We are very honored to host here today one of the foremost women in academia, 2018 Physics Nobel Laureate, Professor Donna Strickland, for our 20th mentoring talk. During these dire conditions in Lebanon, our distinguished guest is here today to light a candle in our darkness. Our esteemed guest is the holder of many prestigious accolades. Professor Strickland obtained her Bachelor of Engineering from McMaster University, going on to continue her physics research at Rochester University under the tutelage of famous scientist Professor Gerard Moreau. The topic of her groundbreaking research in her PhD dissertation was on chirped pulse amplification, a technique which has allowed for fantastic advances in our use and understanding of lasers in a multitude of fields. It was with Dr. Moreau that Dr. Strickland published her landmark paper in 1985 in a modest scientific journal. In fact, she was 26 years old, and it was her first scientific publication. 33 years later, she would become the third woman in history to ever win the Nobel Prize in Physics. Professor Strickland served as the president of the Optical Society in 2013, recently renamed to Optica. In fact, we received the email yesterday that it was renamed to Optica, and is a fellow of Optica, the International Society for Optics and Photonics, the Royal Society of Canada, and the Royal Society. She is an honorary fellow of the Canadian Academy of Engineering and the Institute of Physics, and an international member of the US National Academy of Science. In 1997, Professor Strickland joined the University of Waterloo, where her ultra-fast laser group develops high-intensity laser systems for nonlinear optics investigations. Professor Strickland's name is now immortalized in the chronicles of science, alongside those of her predecessors, Marie Curie and Maria Goeppert-Mayer. Although Professor Strickland now enjoys this great honor, her life has not always been as glorious as the laser beams she studies. Growing up, Professor Strickland always had a robust interest in science, which was well fostered by her father, who was an engineer. Not everyone was as forward-thinking as her family, however, as certain teachers pressured her to shy away from disciplines they deemed too masculine. It was societal pressures such as these that prevented Professor Strickland's own mother from pursuing a career in science, with her opting to become an English teacher instead. Motivated by her naysayers and her mother's regrets, Professor Strickland strove to break the glass ceiling and become a pioneering leader within the STEM field. Now, her name is proudly written on her old high school's wall of fame, adorning the very same hallways where she was once told not to pursue a career in science. Looking in retrospect, I think we can all say with great confidence that she has succeeded in her goal. Here to tell us about her journey from Guelph to Stockholm, please welcome Professor Strickland to the floor. Professor Strickland, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Kaafarani. That was really a very well-informed introduction, I must say. You've studied me well. So we're here to talk about hurdles, I guess. And so I just want to mention a few before we start a question and answer. A lot of people talk about the paper I'm famous for now is my very first paper. And so people automatically think I did that right away when I went to grad school. I will tell you, I was in my 4th year of grad school. I went down an awful lot of wrong avenues that led nowhere before I got to the right avenue that obviously, luckily for me, worked out so well. I actually considered quitting twice my PhD, and the second time was even after I had done CPA. I went home to my hometown and really thought about it and realized that I did want to be a scientist. That's what I wanted to be. And so I just have to suck it up and go back and deal with everything and finish my PhD. And just more recently, I mean, it's not like your life ever necessarily gets smoother or less, although I have been tremendously blessed in my life. I have mostly just had the best of luck. But one of the things that I did wrong was just, I think the year of, or the year before I won the Nobel Prize, I think it was the year of winning the Nobel Prize, I had to put in my first erratum. We had completely misunderstood the readings of our work and had overinflated the energy of our generated mid-infrared by quite a bit. And so we had to put in that erratum and explain it and work back. And I just thought, oh, what a sad way to end my career. And then next thing you know, I'm winning the Nobel Prize and nobody cares that I made such a blunder in my own scientific work. So I don't know, there's peaks and valleys. I've been very lucky. I've had way more peaks than valleys, but no journey is straightforward. So I think that's really all I'll have to say to start with, and I'll just answer questions then after.
To all our audience, Professor Strickland would like her talk to be more of a fireside chat. We lose electricity here in Lebanon. We will get it back in a few minutes. That's why it's dark right now, but don't worry about that. So for questions, please enter your questions in the QA box. Indicate where you are coming from and what do you do in life. I'll be reading the questions and Professor Strickland will be answering. Before we start the questions, I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank Mrs. Nancy Gorbett, the executive assistant to Professor Strickland, with whom I have been working for more than 5 months to make this happen, today's mentoring talk. So I really want to thank her and I appreciate all her efforts. So with that, I am gonna start with the questions. Dana Osman, chemical engineering from AUB. Misconceptions always exist in regards how science should be taught. Do you think there is a problem with the way science is taught?
Well, part of the problem with the way science is taught for me is that usually right through undergrad, from high school through undergrad, we really are teaching all the science of what's already happened. And we need to understand all of that science that has happened. But it's a different thing than when you come into graduate school. You don't seem that prepared because doing science is about thinking outside the box, trying to push the boundary. And so I think we do have to do a little bit better job just even teaching what is science and how to keep pushing forward. And I think we can do that. I think our experimental labs could be more aimed at just trying to, start making yourself ask these questions. Why does it work this way? Why is the result this way? Rather than, always just saying, here's an experiment to teach this concept. And you know that in the 3 hours, you'll go through this stuff. That's one of the things. I think there's been a lot of research. One of my friends and colleagues, Eric Mazur, is one of the leaders in just physics education research, peer-to-peer learning, the clickers and all these things. Because again, I think science is a team sport. Now, the way we teach it, of course, is that you sit in the class and you listen to one person and you write, your answers by yourself and you take your tests by yourself. Again, we can't really push science forward just in our own heads. We have to have conversations with each other. We do experiments together. We bounce ideas off each other. And so I think the more we can get our education around that in this sort of peer-to-peer learning, because you teach or you learn best when you teach. When you can explain it to somebody, you've really got it in your own head. Also, I think people can learn maybe from their peers in a way different than prof to student. So these are the new ideas that are coming along, and I think they're important because I think it's more how science is actually done.
Thank you. This question is from Soline Kevorkian. She's a nursing student at AUB. Have your achievements ever been underlooked because of your gender? How do we, as women in STEM, deal with sexist colleagues?
I don't know that I've had that problem. I mean, people will also say that I'm very confident. And so I think to some extent, there's always two sides to every issue. I think that's true that a lot of women are not taken seriously, but I also think women must always portray themselves with confidence. I think people listen to people who speak from confidence. And in fact, I will tell you one of just before I finished at Rochester, where I did my PhD, they asked me to give a talk to the scientists there. And this was not about CPA, this was about the science that I did with it, which was multiphoton ionization. Now, this is because I was going to have done harmonic generation and it didn't work at all. And so at the last minute, I did multiphoton ionization. And I really didn't get to the point where I was feeling confident that I understood multiphoton ionization. Our results with this really high intensity laser was different than everybody else's. And we didn't have a good explanation at the time. So I gave this talk and it was really like almost apologetic through the whole way through, that I was sort of apologizing for not really fully understanding it. And one of the professors walked out of the room after the talk with me and really gave me a talking to and said, you cannot give a talk like that. Nobody, they'll just think they've wasted their time. If you aren't speaking confidently about your own research, then nobody else is going to think it's worth listening to your research. And why did we waste our time? So never give a talk like that again. So I took those words seriously, and I make sure that I always speak with confidence. I also now, of course, don't allow myself too often to speak what I don't know. Although since winning a Nobel Prize, people have asked me to speak about going to Mars and ocean research, and I'm a laser jock. I don't know why I'm being asked to do this. So you can only speak with so much confidence. I also speak always honestly and say where my limits are. So I think there's a two-sided story that you have to really feel confident in yourself. And so this is one of the other things that I've heard about, and it was a man that explained to me what he sees as one of the biggest problems. Men are taught, boys are taught, right, to go out there and play on the sporting field and be the sports star and brag about being the sports star and be proud of being this person, right? And you say, well, why do you become a scientist? We don't get paid as well as other professions, so we're not doing it for that. We really are just doing it sort of for the fun of doing the science, but also much of it is about communicating the results. Science just done by you doesn't help the world. You have to communicate your results. And men love to get up and say, look what I did, look what I did. Women are not taught to do that. Women are taught to be passive and in the background and what have you. And so one of the things we must teach our female students, not to be the bravado. We can teach the men to bring the bravado down, but we must always be confident in ourselves and speak with that confidence. And then people pay attention and they listen because they really believe you do know what you're talking about.
Thank you. This question is from Tawfiq Imrad. He recently graduated from our department. Right now, he is pursuing his master's in chemistry at the University of Manchester. What was your goal when you first started your scientific studies and career? What did you strive for before realizing you won the Nobel Prize?
Because that was 35 years after. I will say that when I went to grad school, now part of me said I didn't want to go to one of these, schools like the Harvards and the Stanfords because I didn't want to feel like, why am I trying to compete with these people? But I went to grad school and I went to a leading optics institute. I did want to go someplace that would really help my career, but I went with the attitude, I want to do one of the world's best PhDs. I think every PhD student should feel this way. Because again, back to the original, why do you do it? You do it in order to have that fun and make that success. You're not doing it for the money, you're not doing it for the glory, you're not doing, I've won a Nobel Prize, but trust me, it's not like winning a big acting award or something, right? Society, at least in the Western world, society puts that well above science. So you're really just doing it for that. So you might as well go with the attitude, I want to be the best at it. Obviously can't all be the best, but the more that we keep that in our head and try, we try a little bit harder.
Yumna Saadi, biology pre-med student at AUB. She's asking, what is something you would say to your younger self?
Well, like I said, I've led such a charmed life that things have worked out so well for me. Um, I think, I've probably always gone with the flow. And I'm glad I've always gone with the flow. And I think that's the main thing is just, we can't know ahead of time that it'll all work out. Obviously, if I could go back, I'd say, don't worry about it, Donna, it's all going to work out. So I suppose that's what I would tell myself. But unfortunately it doesn't always work out for everybody. So that's not a universal thing everyone can say to their young self. So I don't know.
Thank you. Mary Ann Shaheen, also chemistry student at AUB, is asking, how do you encourage your innovative ideas and constantly challenge yourself?
Well, I'm an experimentalist, and so we keep trying things and they seldom work. So we have to keep asking ourselves, why doesn't it work? Or we see a result and we go, what the heck is that? So that's all. To me, it's a puzzle. I look at always these things as a puzzle. I enjoy doing just simple little puzzles, whether they're jigsaw puzzles or Sudokus or what have you. And my science to me is just another game to be played, another puzzle to be solved. And so we have that. And also then I have conversations either with my colleagues or with my students about what we're seeing and seeing if we can, through a conversation, can we at least try to find a different avenue to get an answer to the question? It's probably not a totally obvious answer, or, I wouldn't have puzzled for it for years sometimes, but you need new avenues to look down. Oh, your power's gone out again.
Yeah, hopefully we will get it back, probably because I'm not moving enough here.
Oh, I see.
Here we go. We have sensor. So I mentioned in my intro regarding your high school and how your teachers were not encouraging you to go into science because this was more masculine. Did you have conversation with any of these teachers after you won the Nobel Prize?
No, I want to sort of correct that. I mean, I did have the one history teacher tell me that, why would I do science? That's a male subject. But both of my physics teachers were absolutely in my corner. So I took physics in high school in grade 11 and grade 13. And grade 11, I remember our computers weren't working, as they so often weren't in those days, probably still. And so we had to carry our report cards around that term by hand and have the teachers hand fill them in. And so I was looking over the shoulder of the grade 11 teacher, and he wrote, "Is this the beginning of a physics career?" And looked up at me, and I automatically said, "I hope not," because I was such a shy kid, and it was, you were so nerdy if you were a physicist. And I thought, oh my gosh, what kind of life is that to be such a super nerd that no one even wants to hang around you? So I was kind of scared of being a physicist, but he certainly encouraged me. And then the grade 13 teacher, and this one, I've been back to my high school to speak to my high school, and he's the one who introduced me. And so I gave him the story, which kind of threw him under the bus. But my mother was a high school English teacher there at the same time, right? So there were, I think, 6 tests through that year in grade 13 physics. And the first test, I walk in late from band practice, and this other guy who ended up being the top in the class says, "You beat me by half a mark." And I went, "Oh, calm down. I'll let you beat me by half a mark next time. It's okay." Anyway, I obviously didn't study for the second test, and I did not do well. He beat me by much more than a half a mark. And my physics teacher went to my mother in the teacher's room and said, "Donna couldn't have studied for that test at all. She should be much better than that. She didn't study at all." And my mother says this to me. And my mother was always a hard studier. She didn't understand why I wouldn't study all the time. And she goes, "He's very frustrated with you, Donna. He thinks you're so good and you should be trying harder." So I did well the next test. And then the fourth test, I didn't do well again. And he went and told on me again to my mother. And I said, "Now look he doesn't get to go and tell any other mother what the student is doing. He shouldn't be talking to you in the teacher's room about me." But it was that teacher that put me on the wall. I got to be on the wall of fame long before the Nobel Prize, because he said we need examples of women scientists on that wall. and I want you've been successful, you did that CPA, you know, and like he knew what I had done and everything. So I had as many teachers I had far more teachers be supportive than negative. So I was not really stopped. When the history teacher said it, I just thought, what a silly thing to say. She was wrong.
Thank you. So this question is from a physics student at AUB, Garo Kerdelian. He's asking, what do you think was the most important factor that allowed you to succeed in physics?
First, all my degrees are in engineering physics from McMaster, and then optics. School of Optics is within the College of Engineering at Rochester. But there's a lot of physics. You know, I always walk that line, basically doing applied physics. What did I get to succeed? Partly, I'm very good at it. I'm very good at very little. Math and physics is about it. So I'm lucky that way. I didn't have to decide. This is the other thing. When I thought about quitting, it was like, well, you really can't do anything else, Donna. So, you know, keep moving forward in that. But also, you know, I didn't give up. When I went to grad school, the other guys were going off to conferences because they were succeeding, they were getting results, and I was not. And so that was very frustrating, I will tell you that. And so I had to sort of keep pushing myself. But I also will say that my colleagues in the group and my colleagues in my class, they helped. They kept saying, come on, Donna, you know, you can do it. It's just bad, you know, it just hasn't been your turn yet. You'll get there. And so I had a lot of encouragement from everybody. But I think you do have to have that tenacity. Science isn't easy. You do go down a lot of wrong paths. It's not like cookie cutter and that it's just going to work. And so you do have to keep thinking about how to change your experiment or your theory or your ideas, and you have to keep pushing yourselves. And sometimes you just have to know when to take a walk and take a breather and relax and just calm down and then set off again with a good attitude.
Thank you. This question is from Ayomide Adeyoye. I don't know if I said his name correctly, and sorry if I misspelled it. He's a second-year biomedical engineering graduate student, and the question is, what was your major challenge during your PhD, and has grade ever been an issue? If yes, how did you overcome it?
Has what ever been an issue?
Your grades.
Oh, no, my grades were never an issue. I was always a good student. What was my biggest challenge? Let me think here. I think actually learning to give a talk. So I already told you about the one at the end of my career where I was very apologetic. But when people at OSA heard about this new CPA, we had not yet, it wasn't ready yet to put in for the what we now call Frontiers in Optics, but was the annual meeting. But they called and said, we've heard about it, can't you put in a post-deadline paper? So we very quickly put in this post-deadline paper, and Gerard sent me off, and I had never given a talk about it even to the group, let alone, you know, now at a big optics conference where you just know people who have built lasers are in the room. And I spoke like this. I was so nervous, and it was really hard to get through. It was really hard to have that confidence in myself. It was, you know, the next time around, I spoke better. But again, one of my former grad school colleagues, who is at the time was at Bell Labs, he was in the audience. And this is when we still used view graphs, right? And we would have to lift one off, and then I tried to use a pen on the view graph machine to point to something. And I was shaking so hard, the pen couldn't even land on the piece of paper. And he came up to me and he said, Donna, you're like a duck. Above the surface, calm and serene, but below the surface, you were paddling like crazy. And I remember when we first started using, you know, laser pointers, I thought, how am I ever going to keep my hand, you know, calm enough to be able to point to something? And so I think that was really the issue for me is, you know, and I've said it before, you have to really learn to get that confidence in yourself. And I was lacking that. And that's what I had to really work on.
Thank you. This question is from Joseph Safi. He's a mechanical engineer from NDU, Notre Dame University, another university in Lebanon. He is pursuing master's degree in sustainable development. His question, you mentioned science being a collaborative journey, and in the multilateral field of sustainability, how would you propose designing a social experiment in that field based on your engineering background?
Oh, that's a tough question for me because I don't work in social sciences at all to understand how to do that. I will tell you what I am working right, it's due on the 29th of September, so I'm going crazy working on it right now, is a grant to Environment Canada. Now, I don't work on environmental science at all. I also don't even work on optical sensors for environment. But as part of my public policy work with Optica, formerly the Optical Society, or OSA, was on sort of this global public advocacy and what could we do globally. And we realized we couldn't go country to country. So in 2015, the Paris Accord was signed and almost every country signed on to it, and we went, fine, we'll tell the whole world how optics can be used to help with climate change. Okay. So, so the grant that I'm trying to write is just a networking grant, just to say what we need to do is bring optics people, and not just optics people, but all kinds of technology people that develop sensors for any reason whatsoever, and bring the environmental scientists together and tell them, tell us what they would still like to sense that they can't sense. And the sensor people can go, good, I could work on that. And that's the idea, that we have to get out of our silos and start talking about the big problems in the world so that we can come up with solutions. And so this is really what it's about. And so I think that would be the same thing, is that you would bring the engineers with the sustainability people and start asking what their problems are that still need results, and ask the technology people to start thinking about, could they help with that?
This question is from Professor Hussein Alawi. Hopefully I said the last name correct. He is an associate professor of mechanical engineering at the University of Rochester.
Well, there you go.
And he is an AUB physics alumnus. He's saying, thank you for taking the time for such a conversation. I am confident that it will have a huge influence on many young scientists attending today. Can you share a bit about your experience trying to achieve a sustainable work-life balance, balancing time with family and friends, and the urge to spend all your time on exciting science?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I will tell you that I had thought I would never have children. I just didn't see that for me. I didn't even think I'd get married. I just thought I'd be a career girl. But in the end, I fell for one of the guys in grad school that I was in Jordan Rue's group with, and he wanted kids. So fine, whatever, we'll do kids. And now I'm so glad that I did. And my kids, obviously I'm saying this and it's being recorded, but my kids know that that's what I've always thought. But once I had kids, I really felt that I wanted to spend time with them. I enjoyed my time with my children as much as I would enjoy time doing science. So I did not have that problem. I will also say you can't ever do it correctly. I like to tell some of the funny stories. One of them was I'm married to a Jewish man, and so we do Passover. Now, once my son got to be, I don't know, about 18, he said, I don't want to. I don't consider myself Jewish anymore. I don't know what he is, agnostic. It doesn't matter what he thinks he is. And I said, I don't care. I've never been Jewish in my life. And still, I'm going to sit down and we're going to have this Passover Seder together, because it's a time to bring family together and have a nice evening and discussion. And he said, Mom, if we were a normal family where we were always running around to different activities and never having dinner together, I'd agree with you, but you always make us sit down and have dinner together. So this is nothing special. There you go. I try to have my family time, and so it backfires. The other funny story that I always tell, I don't know if it's funny, sad, whatever. When my daughter was about 5, I'm putting her to bed and she's looking so sad. And I said, Hannah, you've got to tell me what's bothering you. What is making you feel so sad? And she said, my friend, I won't say the name, you're recording this. My friend says that her mom loves her more than you love me because she chose to stay home with her and you go out to work. Now I could see this mom having this conversation with her daughter, and the daughter was probably asking to buy something, and her response was, okay, we can't afford that because I, love you so much. I chose not to go and make a lot of money. I chose to stay, so I could see her reasoning with her child. So I sat, luckily something very quickly hit my mind. We had a live-in nanny. And I said, oh, Hannah, she's just jealous. She only has 2 parents and you have 3. she does not have a Marie. And Hannah went, you're right, Mommy, she doesn't have a Marie. I said, I know. She has to make do with just a mommy and daddy and no Marie. So she's feeling sad about that. And you just have to accept that. Don't make her feel bad about it. Just understand that's where she's coming from. Okay. She's just a little jealous of you that you have 3 parents. And she just had a big smile on her face and she was perfectly happy. So, yeah, you have to make your life work for you, however you want your life to work out, or however life throws that curveball for you.
Thank you. This question is from Muhammad Abdul Haq. He's a chemistry student. How did you react when you found out you won the Nobel Prize?
Yeah, at 5 in the morning.
At 5 a.m. calls.
Well, first of all, so they call you at 5, like for East Coast time in North America, it's 5 in the morning because it's always just 11 o'clock Swedish time, a.m. And we still have a landline. And so they called the landline, which was beside my husband, not me. And, we have grown children living away. I mean, all of our parents were gone, but right away you think it's wrong. I mean, you don't usually get called in the middle of the night unless something's wrong. So I wake up saying what's happened. And then, and he's going, well, it's for Professor Strickland they're asking for. And again, you still think, oh my gosh, fire in the lab or something, right? So I get on the phone and they say, it's an important call from Sweden. Please stay on the line. At that point, I'm like now hanging on to my husband going, oh my gosh, it's October 2nd. It's 5 in the morning. And it's a call from Sweden. I think I'm winning the Nobel Prize. And then they actually, dropped the line. But I actually, Doug and I sat there for 15 minutes waiting. And I thought, well, how long am I supposed to stay on the line? Now, again, you're not thinking clearly because my iPad was right there. I could have gotten onto email. Anyway, I go downstairs and use this computer. I get on my email and it says, we're desperately trying to call you because they couldn't because I was staying on the line because I'm a rule follower and they told me to stay on the line. But this one was from the Royal Swedish Academy. So I actually had to call Sweden, but I knew that I was calling the Royal Swedish Academy on October 2nd. So, and then they let me know. And they let me know, obviously, Gerard had won, and that Art Ashkin had won. And I was very happy about that. I think Art should have won a few years back. So I was glad to see that he won. And then, your whole life just completely changes. At 6 in the morning is when the press conference happens, and that was it. My phone just went ding, 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 the whole, that didn't stop, I think, for the whole day. The emails just kept pouring in. I had a photographer at my front door by 7 a.m. Unfortunately, I was getting our bathroom redone, and the plumbers also showed up. And then they shut the water off, and so many things were happening. I had another lovely neighbor who brought me flowers. So I had the plumber and the flowers and the photographer, and we're all there. And it's like, okay, I said, yes, shut the water off. So that when I went in to meet with the president of the university and he asked if, he could do anything to help, I went, please get me a cup of coffee. I'm dying here. I've had no water. So yeah, your life just overnight just changes like crazy.
I don't know how much time we have, but can you spare 15, 20 more minutes?
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, sure.
Okay. So this question is again from Mary Ann Shaheen. She is following up on what you said, that you almost quit twice. What mentality did you employ to overcome this and pick yourself back up? Did your family and friends help? Maybe a mentor? Or did you find the strength in yourself after some time?
I think there's a few things. I remember the first time just going to the train to get back, and I just kept saying, put one foot in front of the other, Donna. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. I said, even if you go back to quit, you have to go back, put one foot in front of the other. And that time when I got back, all of a sudden, I'm not going to go into what the issues were because the other side of the story isn't here to explain the other side of the story, but certainly it was Gerard that time who said, okay, this issue was solved, this issue was solved, this issue was solved, this issue was solved, this issue was solved as soon as I walked in the door. And so a lot was put to bed on that one. And the second time, it really was, I think, my friends in the group. that really just sort of helped me up and said, don't quit. You've come too close. You're going to get your PhD. You're just not going to let this stop you. You're not going to let this derail you. You deserve your PhD. You've done a great job. You're going to stay with it. So I would say it was my group that time that really kept me going. But I would also say that I wanted to keep going. And that was the time that I'd gone home and really thought about it. I knew I wanted to be a scientist, but certainly it really helped to have all of my group members, and they were all guys. So I want to be very clear, men have always been very supportive of me.
Thank you. This question is from Vahé Panossian. He's a medical student here at AUB. His question, where do you see the field of optics and lasers going forward? What interesting things are next?
Optics will be used everywhere. Okay, lasers will be used everywhere. That's all there is to it. So in the year I was president of then OSA, now Optica, Gerard had me go to CERN and talk about laser acceleration. And don't build a bigger CERN. Let's try figuring out how to do this with lasers. And I remember my talk that I gave, which was really about how OSA wants to support photonics initiatives, and we're everywhere. And I pointed out, look, at optics is already everywhere. We're in medicine. We probably started from astronomy, right? We're in medicine. We're in machining. We're in communications. We're in security. We're everywhere. I said the one place that maybe we haven't been is high energy physics, and so we're here to tell you we're coming into high energy physics because optics will be used everywhere. So I'm just going to say that right off. There's no place optics and lasers won't be working. I would still say, and I usually do say, that I think the laser acceleration for high intensity lasers, which is what I work in, although I don't work on the really super intense ones, I think going forward, laser acceleration is probably the big application that we really are pushing for.
Thank you. This question is from Mohammed Kabakibi. What are the experiences that shaped your success?
Shaped my success. First, I'm going to say that I'm very lucky to have a supportive spouse. So one of the things that stopped my tracks was, like I said, I usually just go with my gut and just go through life. The one and only time that I chose was that when I was in my third year grad school, and it took me 7 years, and before I did CPA, I had heard about the work of Paul Corkum at the National Research Council in Ottawa. And I'd done a summer job at NRC in Ottawa, and I loved NRC. I loved the city, Ottawa, my favorite city. And I just thought, it was Canada's, and still is. I mean, I'll still put him ahead of me as Canada's ultra fast optics person. And so I just thought, okay. I heard about it at a conference. I went back to the group and I said, Paul Corkum doesn't know me yet, but I'm going to be his next postdoc. I knew his first postdoc. He had been at McMaster. He was a grad student when I was an undergrad, and that's how I'd heard about it. And so I worked on making that true. And again, the guys in my group helped. We would be at a conference. They go, Paul's over there, get in his face. Paul's over there, get in his face. After I finished my PhD in 1990, or postdoc in 1991, Reagan's Star Wars had come and gone. So Reagan was the president in the 80s. And he really pushed for this idea of, I don't know, shooting Russian missiles out of the sky with lasers or something. And it put a lot of money into laser research in the US. That went away. And I can tell you that there was hardly any jobs for laser people in the early 90s. And I really struggled to find a position. By this time, I was trying to get married to a guy in New Jersey. You would have thought New Jersey was one of the best places because there was Bell Labs there, there's universities there, I should have been able to find a job. I could not for the life of me. And so Lawrence Livermore, which is a big laser place, offered me a position as a laser physicist. I didn't really want to live right across the country from my husband, but I did not want to be unemployed. So I went ahead and moved right after getting married. I moved to California, and my husband stayed in New Jersey. That lasted for years. It's hard for a Canadian to work at a US weapons lab. It's not easy to have a marriage from bi-coastal. So I actually gave up, I would say, on my academic dreams at that point, and I took a job as a member of technical staff at Princeton University, where I just helped the professors with their laser projects. And I did that for 4 years. And then this position came up in Waterloo. By then, Doug's position at Bell Labs was going away. And so he followed me, right? He followed me. He took an industry job. And he's willing to sort of, and I would tell you, when we travel now, he's in the audience almost all the time. I don't know how many times he's heard me give my talk. He is trying to be the male spouse of a Nobel laureate to beat all. He's not going to let any of the female spouses think they're better. So that's been one of the things that have really helped me. But I mean, I might not have gotten this job. I think Waterloo, you know, sort of took a chance on somebody who had not done their own research for 4 years. And I was willing to do that, to be with my husband. So I would say that, you know, we've looked at this as a partnership all the way along.
Thank you. A couple of questions from Dana Osman, chemical engineering student. We are aware that over the years, women are no longer staying home, but how can we encourage more women to do science? Do you think that recognizing the unexpected is one of the things that might make people stand out more than others? If yes, was this your case?
Well, first of all, let's answer that one first. I don't know how come I won the Nobel Prize. I think it not only requires you doing the science, but I will also say that Gerard has touted this. Gerard has spent much of his energy convincing other people to do CPA and build petawatt lasers. And he's really been out there driving the field forward. I stepped back and I'm just happy in my own little lab with my own little laser. And so it probably takes both of those things to really be noticed. Okay. So left on my own, I probably would not have been noticed. What was the first part of the question? My brain is too fried. How to encourage women, I guess, to go into science.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I think we have to get women seeing themselves there and seeing that it is fun, and seeing that they do have the role to play. See that, you know, they can have that confidence to stand up at conferences and say, look what I did, right? That's not really what it's about, but you have to have that mentality, because it's really about saying, look at this new research. Can you use this new research for your research? That's why we go to conferences, so that we can hear from each other and keep seeing how to use it in our own area. And so we have to have that. The other thing, though, I think what we need is that everybody feels equal on everything. It's not just making women feel like they're equal in the workforce. Men should be really feeling like they're equal in having the choice to be the one to stay home. I can say at one point, because my husband came here and he didn't really like the job he had, he said, I just want to spend some time seeing if I can get my own thing off the ground. So for a while, I was the only moneymaker. And I can tell you, as the woman, I had always just been the second moneymaker. I was always doing it for the interest and not the money. And I remember walking into work that day in the parking lot, and I thought, if it doesn't go well, I can't quit. I am the moneymaker for the family. And it's a different feeling altogether, right? So I think we have to start having that conversation, that both genders feel equally like it should be my choice, or the choice as the couple, or whoever, you know, looking after the children, decide together which one stays home, if one needs to stay home. We chose to have the full-time nanny, but the choice should be there, and that choice should be equal. I don't think we have near enough of the conversation about that. We hear a lot about the problems of how women don't feel supported, but the reality is it has to come from both sides, and both sides need to feel supported, that they're equal in all aspects, from the childbearing to the being fulfilled at work.
This question is from Dr. Kamal Badr. He's Associate Dean at the Faculty of Medicine here at AUB. How do you think the universe started?
I think the universe started. You mean other than the Big Bang? Are we asking like who gave the Big Bang? I have no idea. I mean, I am a church-going person, and so I like to think that there's something out there, but in my scientific mind, I don't. They're two separate issues altogether. So I have no idea what happened before the Big Bang and where the energy came from at that point in time.
This is a comment from Dr. Abdullah Adra. He's OBGYN here at AUBMC. His daughter, Noor, now is Med2 student, and she used to be on my team, a very distinguished girl. He's quoting you, sometimes you just have to be happy you get one chance in life and not worry too much about whether you get two. That's what you said, and we have it on the poster. In fact, that was what really attracted me, and Dr. Adra, to attend this mentoring talk. This question is from Zena Al-Khalil. Zena is a coordinator of my Transformative Education team, and she has been tweeting what you have been saying live right now. You don't have a Twitter account, otherwise she would have been tagging you. She said, I would like to ask, do you see your journey as more of a marathon or a sprint? On the one hand, there is pressure to complete your PhD as soon as possible, but on the other hand, taking your time is important.
Well, okay, so first of all, back in my day in the United States, they didn't push us to finish early at all. Right? I was there for 7 years, and that was pretty standard. And I had professors say, look, you only get to be useful after the 4th year, so why would we want to kick you out? And, basically we were cheaper than a postdoc, so they didn't really push us out. And I will also say my whole career goal growing up was to get a PhD. I had no goal beyond that. So I was also not in a hurry to finish my PhD. So I was happy to stay, and then until the end when I was thinking about quitting, and then it was time just to finish up. But, I was perfectly happy to stay long. Do I think if it's a marathon? A marathon seems like, oh my gosh, I'm not a marathoner, but they always seem like it's so hard. Obviously they love doing it or they wouldn't be a runner. But I think it's a journey. I don't know that it's a marathon because that seems like a lot of hard work. I think of it as a journey, and that it will take several different paths as you journey along.
Thank you. What advice would you give to the younger version of yourself? This is from Muhammad Abdul Haq, another chemistry student.
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. I don't know. I'm not nearly as introspective as a lot of people are because, and maybe just like I said, I've led such a charmed life. Why would I want to go back and not live a charmed life? And so, yeah, I don't know that I would have something different because I don't know what differences I could have done. I mean, maybe had I, given up on the academic career and that had ground me down, I might have, resented it and not, but who knows? No, because I do tell people not to worry about, a lot of women will say, when's the right time to have babies? I go, there's never the right time to have babies. It's when you want to have the babies and you're able to have the babies. So, that's all there is to it. And you cannot ever think, oh, everything's going to fall apart because I make that choice. No, the world is not falling apart from any one choice. You meander a little differently, but that's all. It's just a different kind of meandering when you make these choices. Nothing is catastrophic and nothing just completely stops you.
Just 2 more questions. We're not going to take more time. I know how busy you are. What has the Nobel allowed you to do that you would not be able to do otherwise? How did your life change in science after winning the Nobel Prize?
It's completely different. First of all, there's more pressure on me. I always feel like people are actually listening to me now. And so, and I'm known for saying totally ridiculous things. So I have to try very hard not to say ridiculous things, especially when people are recording me. I probably have already though. I've also had tremendous opportunities to really get to interact with some of the great minds in the world. I was just named to the Pontifical Scientific Academy, so I'm looking forward to joining that. But I've been part now of many other academies. I've had the opportunity to meet rock stars like Brian May of Queen, who runs this wonderful meeting called Starmus, which I will take part in again. I've got, and at that same meeting, you get to meet Apollo astronauts who have landed on the moon. I mean, there's only a dozen of them, and some of them were there. So I have this tremendous opportunity to interact with many more people than I had the chance to interact with before. So I would say my world really greatly opened up.
Joel, you're typing your question. Joel Al-Hamsi, Computer Science at AUB. I thought you're typing a question. Here it is. Well, I think she already mentioned that. She's asking again, how did you manage to find balance between your career and social life?
I just do it. I probably, I would say I don't have that much social life. I would say once I had family, between husband, family, and career, that was enough. So, I mean, it's not like I don't spend some time with friends, but I would say probably that's the one that was let go the most.
Actually,
I'm very social, so,
I wanted to say one last question, but Yumna Saadi, she is asking, do you have a particular person in your life that inspired you?
I would say it's just my mother, right? I would say that it was my mother who is, you know, she was a strong voiced woman, and she really did keep saying, don't let anybody else tell you what you want to do. You know what you want to do and go do it. So I would say, although here's one of the funniest stories that my husband likes to tell. So when just before we got married, then I'm telling my parents that I'm going to move right across the country to live, and they had yet to meet Doug's parents. And my mother said, oh my gosh, what am I going to say to his family, that they would think I'd raised a daughter that would just, you know, leave her husband right away? And my dad said, I think it's great. My mother turned to him and said, really? Because when we were getting married and I said I just wanted to work one more year, your answer was we would wait one more year to get married then. And my dad goes, times are changing, Edith. Times are changing. so, you know, and it's also, I always say, you know, male chauvinists, which I'm sure my dad was in his day, change when they have daughters and when they realize they don't want their daughters stopped by their own silly attitudes. So things keep changing. And I've been supported by both my parents.
Thank you. Again, the last question is by Muhammad Subrawi, the IT guy. He's asking, whose picture is behind you?
Well, now this comes with what you said, just be happy if you have it one time. So this is Alexander Graham Bell. It is my husband's grandfather who was the artist who did the marble statue, which this is just a photo of the marble statue. It was commissioned by AT&T Bell Labs. They've lost theirs. But there's another one. He made 2 marble statues, and the other one is in the Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. But the story that Doug's mother kept the newspaper clippings about this, and one of them was the family saying that they really didn't like this depiction of Alexander Graham Bell. It made him look like a grumpy old man. And Alexander Graham Bell said, I am a grumpy old man. And apparently he was always sort of upset that he couldn't top the telephone. And you think, if you started with the telephone, be happy, you'd top up the telephone. So I keep that. I used to sit on the other side of my dining room, and I thought, no, I'm going to have that over my shoulder to always say, you know, if it comes around once, just be happy. No point in being worried if you don't top what you did at the beginning.
Thank you so much. On behalf of all attendees, I would like to sincerely thank you for your time, for answering all of these questions, and for enlightening the young minds in this audience. I very much appreciate your time, and I hope we will have the chance to host you here at AUB. We have a beautiful campus. Hopefully COVID and the situation in Lebanon will be better to start enjoying the company of renowned people such as yourself right here in Beirut. Thank you again. And on behalf of everybody, I applaud all your efforts and your beautiful talk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Hope to get to Beirut sometime.
I hope so. Enjoy your evening, and thank you, everybody. Until our next mentoring talk in a couple of weeks. Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.